Welcome into the Hot Read podcast for Monday, December 25th, a Christmas Day episode of the Hot Read podcast being recorded here on Christmas Eve. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network. You can follow me on social media at Easton Freeze. I'm joined on a holiday afternoon by producer JT, as always, who you can follow on social media at JT_Ruhnke. JT, Merry Christmas. How are you?
Merry Christmas. I'm good. I'm feeling festive, even though Nashville weather is like, it feels like it's mid-September. It's gross. I hate it.
Can we not talk about it? I hate it.
I fear we'll never see snow again in our lifetime, but that's a podcast for another
Remember
episode.
when it used to snow? Remember that?
Yeah, remember that? That's kind of crazy. But what else is kind of crazy? Today's Titans game, and that's what we're going to talk about here, unfortunately, on a Christmas Eve.
What a pro. Yeah, we're going to keep it brief today on a holiday episode. I know a lot of you guys are tuning in briefly after the Titans game to recap whatever that was.
However, these people are masochists. We have 50 people in here right now.
I don't know
who have nothing else better to do on Christmas Eve than talk about a Titans loss.
We're great at selling our show by immediately telling people they should leave. What are you doing here? No, you shouldn't leave. Don't leave yet. We'll keep it short today. Happy holidays to Evan in the chat. If you want to be a part of today's conversation, do what Evan has done and find YouTube live on Twitter or on Facebook. That's great, but you can go over to Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. It's Broadway Sports Media on YouTube. Find this live stream, and that is where you'll want to be in the comment section to be a part of today's conversation. That's where we can talk to you, folks like Volcano, Evan, Derek, Paul, already in here with us. Appreciate you guys being here. So, yeah, we're recapping a Titans game that was one of the games of all time. It sure was a game. I have never been less plugged in to a game that I have attended, a Titans game that I have attended, than I was for this one. Frankly, if I'm being 100% honest, I was just ready to go home, partly because the game was bad and it was two dysfunctional teams, partly because the game was bad and boring to me, at least. Some people have told me they found it entertaining. I'm glad you did. I genuinely am. I did not. And then partly because it's Christmas Eve and I'm like, I want to get home and be with my family and do Christmas things. And so here I am, dressed up still, fresh from Nissan Stadium, ready to talk with you all about this Titans game. And then I'm going to go and probably gorge myself on some cookies and hot cocoa and do Christmas Eve stuff with my family. So looking forward to that. But before we get to do all that, and before we get to talk about the Titans, got to tell you about our wonderful, amazing sponsor, Boomba's Craft Pizza and Tap House. We love Boomba's. There are 3 Middle Tennessee locations where you can go and enjoy their wonderful pizza and drink selection in East Nashville, in Murfreesboro, and our home location in Spring Hill, a 25-minute drive south of town if you live in the Nashville area. It's where we are live each and every Thursday evening, right before Thursday Night Football, previewing the Titans game of the week. We will be there this week as well. I will be. JT will be out of town. I don't know if he may be zooming into the show. Might have a guest fill-in co-host for that show. We'll see. I'll be honest. I've not figured out what we're going to do yet, but I'm at least going to be there, and there's probably going to be somebody else involved, and we're going to talk about the Titans and football and the news of the week. And that'll be a big episode for us this week because I don't believe we're going to do a Tuesday show. I think we're going to skip our midweek show this week because it is the holiday, and we would, like some time off. And there's also, if this was a contending Titans team, I guarantee you would be doing that show, but they're not. And so we're kind of we got 2 more games left of this nonsense before we can dive into what I'm really stoked about. This offseason cycle is going to be a great time to be a Titans fan, a great time to be a part of this media market. We'll have plenty to talk about then. But for now, the Titans are still playing. And so let's dive into a pretty open form discussion on this game and what there was to draw from this Titans loss. They lose, of course, to the Seahawks in the end, a back and forth, multiple lead change in the fourth quarter game in which the Seahawks come out on top 20-17. Brief side note, shout out JT for getting that early closing line number value on the Seahawks spread. This is why, once again, we have countless examples at this point, folks. You've got to bet with us on the Hot Read podcast, best bet gauntlet, and you've got to get the best lines when we tweet them out on social media early in the week on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Sometimes you got to lock those lines in early because they're going to change. It was -2.5. Seattle is a home or road favorite rather for a lot of the week. And then it changed to a 3.5 that stayed steady for the rest of the weekend after we bet it on the best bet gauntlet. And so if you bet it at 3.5, you lost your bet. But if you bet it at 2.5, like JT and the best bet gauntlet did, then you got your cash. JT, while I'm blabbering for a little bit, would you mind? I've not even checked what our current record is for the best bet gauntlet. I know it's been a good week. I know we have a winning record, but I'm not sure quite what the record is right this second. So if you could look that up for me. But Titans lose 20-17 to the Seahawks. It was a back and forth game for a lot of it. The Titans got out to a lead early, led at half, and then withered down the stretch. Where to go with this one? There is no such thing as a good loss for an NFL organization. Absolutely not. I think if you think it is good for a team ultimately to lose, I think you're being foolish. There is a human element to this. There is a stamina and morale element to this. Like, these are people. You got, like, if you lose and you lose and you lose and you lose, eventually that starts to wear on folks, and that eventually starts to cause real problems beyond what happens on the field. That being said, there are such things as bad losses, or bad wins rather. And this would have been an example of a bad win for a Titans team that, with Ryan Tannehill at the helm, a dysfunctional performance. You didn't really gain anything from it. Even if you'd won this game by the skin of your teeth, we would have come away feeling like, they won a game that was meaningless. And also they didn't do it in very impressive fashion. And also a large part of that was the other team was playing pretty poorly, in my opinion. So there wouldn't have been much to gain from that win besides, good job, guys. You won the game. And there would have been a lot to lose in the Titans draft position, which now after that loss, they are currently slated, according to tankathon.com, they are currently slotted as the 5th overall pick in the 2024 draft. This is a projection. A lot of folks online have been questioning how the Titans are above the Chargers in this projection, how their strength of schedule has been calculated. I'm confused on this, like you all. So maybe they're 5th, maybe they're 6th right now. They're one of those two. Just to clear this up for the nerds that really want to know exactly what it is. First of all, their game's still yet to be played today. So, like, if Chicago goes and loses, that'll change. If the Giants go and lose, this will change. This is not final. We'll know a final, as of week 16 number later in the week. But I think that Tankathon projects out the strength of schedule for teams through the end of the year. That's what I've been led to believe. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've been led to believe that they take their strength of schedule based on the games that have already been played and the actual current strength of schedule, and also predicting the strength of schedule of teams' full schedule later on in the season. That's what I've been told. Maybe I'm wrong, but if you have questions as to what the strength of schedule calculation is, so do I, so do a lot of people. That's neither here nor there. Point is, the Titans improved their draft stock with this loss, and they would have significantly damaged their draft stock if they had won this game. And so that's a good thing long-term for the team. Again, never good to lose a ball game, but for the long-term health of this franchise, it of course was a good thing for them to find a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory in this one. JT, did you have any 10,000-foot view opinions on this game, or was it kind of blah to you like it was blah to me?
I think it was a pretty meh game to me, but when you look at it as just that, you start to notice a pattern. And I think just thinking about this game as I was driving home, it really feels like this. And to your point about just losing, like, wearing on you after every single week, it feels like, have you ever seen that, the meme-ish kind of clip of the intro to, like, the video game Far Cry 3, where the guy is like, did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
Yeah.
Like, like that feels like what this Titans team is.
Just banging your head on the wall. Yep.
It's banging your head on the wall. And I knew that we were going to get the same kind of game from the start. I mean, you can basically tell how a Titans game is going to go nowadays just from the first drive, right? On the first drive, 3rd and 8, they try to pass on first down, which was a pleasant surprise to come out of the gate. They pass on first down.
Ryan Tannehill pass that is a good 2 beats late into double coverage.
And I was distracted. I was distracted right as the game started. So, like, good job me, but I was in there and I asked someone, like, did they run the ball on the first down there? And someone said, no, they actually passed. And I said, wow, I was pleasantly surprised. But then, that? Of course, you get to 3rd and 8 there. And I just said to myself, oh boy, I know this ain't going to go well. And then, of course, we get a false start, not on one of the offensive linemen this time, but on DeAndre Hopkins. In either way, of course. Of course. And then it backs you up to 3rd and 13, and then the drive is over. So, like,
and then Tannehill has the ball stripped out of his hands. He picks it back up and then is promptly sacked for the I guess it's technically not a strip sack, fumble. but it was a fumble strip followed by a sack, whatever that is
Kind of,
exactly.
yeah.
No, it was a drive that 100% was demonstrative of how dysfunctional they were going to be the rest of the game. Some of you in the comments, Derek, very strong opinions in the comments here, saying Ryan Tannehill ruined Christmas. I'm sorry that you were banking on Titans win for your Christmas to be good. I would have advised against that going into the game, but do you, Derek? He also says that he needs Levis back now. Sure, 100%. And that kind of informs his last comment here. Draft picks, he says, are a lottery ticket. Getting a high pick could mean nothing. Sure, Derek. Yeah, 100%. We talk about that all the time on the show, and that is the case. It doesn't change the fact that if you're just playing the numbers, you have a better chance of getting a better player the higher you are in the draft. And like I said, we've been talking about this Titans team as a team that really isn't playing for a ton this season for a couple of weeks now. And I've been pretty clear that I think it's best for this team to try to find a way to win with their future franchise quarterback now. Like, winning is the number one priority over draft pick. Now, that makes it kind of a win-win scenario in a lot of these games, because if you lose, you get a better draft pick. If you win, you're finding a way to win with your young quarterback. Like, you can find a serious positive in both of those outcomes. The difference in this one, of course, Derek, is that it was Ryan Tannehill in there, and they didn't look very good. So I don't think you could have in that fourth quarter gone, man, based on the way this game has gone so far, it would be good for this team to win this game. Better than if they were to lose it. I don't think there's any rational argument for a Ryan Tannehill win in the fourth quarter in a game in which nobody looked particularly good, and there's not really anything you did that you can build off of going forward to justify winning that. Like, I don't get that. So I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. Tannehill did a job out there, not a good one. So just we can review some of his numbers here. Ryan Tannehill passing 18 of 26 for 152 yards. He took 6 sacks for 39 yards lost, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Derrick Henry, by the way, young Peyton Manning, just the only really interesting part of the entire game to me was the Derrick Henry deep by his standards touchdown pass to Chigakonkwo. Ups for Chig, first touchdown of the year. How about that coming from Derrick Henry, who now
the day I didn't sprinkle on him.
I was going to ask if you did, but I was assuming I would have heard it by now if you did. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. You get your first Chig touchdown of the year. And you get a Derrick Henry deep 12-yard touchdown pass. I think he's now thrown 5 touchdowns, including the postseason in his career. Very good passer rating is like 122 and change. Derrick Henry, listen, in the NFL, sometimes maybe we need to just think outside the box and let non-quarterbacks throw the ball more often. Because when you're good at it, you're good at it. Derrick Henry has proven that. I'm surprised other teams don't do that kind of thing more often. But yeah, Tannehill, you saw some rust for sure. He's not played since October, since we were in London watching him get hurt. So that's part of it. You also saw, I think, lack of chemistry a little bit here and there. You saw him clearly behind an offensive line that was yet again one of the worst, if not the worst, iterations of this offensive line. You got guys like Andrew Rupchich in there playing ball. You've got Jalen Duncan in there for a bit. Then he comes out, and it's John Ajokwu in there. It was a mosh posh of guys, and it wasn't good. Again, 6 sacks allowed. I'm sure a ton of pressures allowed. So not a great game in that regard. What else is there to say? Derrick Henry ran like a man possessed for a lot of the game, which was good. He was averaging north of 7 yards per carry through the first quarter, or through the first half, rather, which I remarked on social media. When was the last time Derrick Henry had a first half in which he averaged over 7 yards per carry? It's been a good long while, I can guarantee you that. So he was running hard after a couple of pretty bad performances for him. Just to update folks even further on the Titans rooting guide for draft position today, our buddy, friend of the show, friend of 440 Sports and Broadway Sports Media, Justin Gravedigger out there at Titans Film Room on Twitter, he had a super nerdy, deeply comprehensive list of the Titans rooting guide this week for draft position. It's gone very, very well for them so far. As of right now, with the afternoon games yet to be completed, they have gotten their way. The Titans, best case for the Titans draft pick. Things have fallen in their favor in every game but one so far this week. So, of course, the Tennessee game fell in their favor. The Rams winning was good for them. Pittsburgh winning was good for them. The Chargers beating Buffalo would have been good, but that didn't happen. Cleveland winning was good. The Jets winning was good. Atlanta winning was good. Green Bay winning was good. So for folks wanting to root through the rest of this week, here's your rooting guide. Okay. You want Tampa Bay to win this game against Jacksonville, which they're currently beating the brakes off of them. We'll talk about the AFC South more here in a second. Chicago beating Arizona. So far, so good, I believe, on that front. Dallas beating Miami. There's some work to do there. New England beating Denver later tonight. And then tomorrow, you need Vegas to beat Kansas City, the Giants to beat Philadelphia, and San Fran to beat Baltimore. One of those things sounds likely. The other two, I don't know. So that's your rooting guide. Again, you're rooting for Tampa Bay, Chicago, Dallas, New England, Vegas, the Giants, and San Francisco for the Titans position. Do you want to talk for a minute, JT, about this AFC South as a whole? I think it's objectively hilarious that one of these teams, and I'm not talking about the Titans, obviously, they've been out of it for a little bit now. One of these teams in the AFC South at 8 wins is going to have to host a playoff game in January. And none of them look like they deserve it. They all, I mean, the backsliding going on, the falling apart here at the end that's going on with these teams, all for kind of different reasons. With the Colts, it's kind of like I think that the Minshew mask has come off. The facade of a really great offense that Shane Steichen has put together is starting to show, and that defense is being exposed by any offense with a pulse. So that's just kind of that magic starting to run out. With the Texans, like, you got to get your guy back. CJ Stroud he's the straw that has stirred the drink all year long for this offense. And there was a report earlier this weekend that, because I had some folks asking me today, like, do you think Stroud's coming back to win this division? And if you told me he came back next week, I'd say maybe. But I saw a report, I swear, either yesterday or Friday, that he's still having sensitivity to light and sound from his concussion symptoms. So that, like, that doesn't scream to me a guy that's almost back. He may have a really bad concussion in that way, and that's a bummer, because I think the Texans with Stroud, especially if they'd had him this whole time, the last 2 weeks, I think that they'd be in first place in this division and the favorite to win it. Because Jacksonville, my goodness, is there... maybe there is. I'm sure there is. I'm sitting here thinking about it really for the first time, but they have to be one of, if not the number one team in the NFL this season with the most disappointing outcome as compared to what they came into the season expecting. The Titans also very disappointing, but that was largely, I think, because folks got their hopes up and there was a lot of uncertainty, and you're like, maybe things could go right. With Jacksonville, they had a lot of concrete things on paper coming into the year that led a lot of people to believe this team's going to be a contender this year. They're not contending, man. Like, at all. They're not contending.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I don't know if I would give them, I don't know if I would go so far as to chop up today as this team not being good, because of course they're going up against the Baker Buzzsaw, which seems untouchable right now.
That happens to anybody.
Yeah, exactly. It'll happen to the Cowboys here next week or the week after, whenever they play them.
Please make my post-Christmas by having that happen. I will be so happy.
I digress. It is kind of a wild roller coaster that we've been on, as this week in national sports media news, we essentially we're talking about how, this is a great division with a lot of teams underperforming that now have a chance at the playoffs.
It's going to be a real race to the finish.
This is going to be a race to the finish, and it's not going to be a race to the finish. It is going to be it's going to be limp
crawl.
It's going to be the tortoise and the hare, except all the teams are tortoises, and it just depends whoever feels like falling into a first place win here in the AFC South.
It's going to be like that trope when it's like somebody want to volunteer to step forward, and then everybody but one person takes a step backwards, and it's like like that's what somebody's going to be stuck. Like, oh no, shoot, I have to host a playoff game. Dadgummit.
I do think in the end, probably Jacksonville stumbles into it anyways.
That's what I was going to ask you, is what do you think's going to happen?
I think it's I mean, if CJ Stroud came back this week, I would put it in Houston's hands.
Agreed.
But yeah, I mean, I think Indiana, after today's loss to the Falcons, it kind of cemented in my mind for sure that this team cannot be competitive in a playoff like atmosphere. I think Jacksonville, if they stumble there, you could get a phenomenal game out of Trevor Lawrence and kind of carrying them on his shoulders through this playoff push here. But like, I mean, whatever team has to face, I don't know, maybe like the Bills, if they don't end up winning that division, like they are going to be the 4th seed and have to play either like a Miami or a Buffalo. And I don't think it would be fun.
No, not at all. Not at all. Some more comments from you guys in the chat. Logan, one of the horsemen of the Hot Read Apocalypse, says, Merry Christmas, guys. Thanks for the excellent podcast. Thank you. Production is always on point, even though the content is suspect at times, Logan. Okay. Just this guy likes to yank our chain all the time. Yeah. Okay. Merry Christmas, Logan. Derek saying that was more of a joke, that he just hates the thought of tanking. It's loser mentality. He's not actually letting 17 ruin his Christmas. I'm glad you're having a good Christmas, Derek. I have one more thought really on this game, and then I'm content to say Merry Christmas. We'll talk to you later this week. And we've been saying this for a couple of games in a row now, but I think this even further solidified, because today I came into this game thinking, if there was ever a time that this team would start to show some cracks of giving up on, whether it's on their coach or on the season or whatever it is, this felt like the game to do it. You know, you got the holiday distraction. I'm sure nobody really wanted to be there, or like would love to have played on a different day. And then, you know, you've got the fact that you're going up against a team that has playoff hopes. So you can play spoiler to them, but you know, winning this game doesn't really do anything for you besides saying you won the game. And it's not like you got a bunch of starters out there. You've got very few starters out there. So you've got guys, I guess, that are playing for their careers, playing for the tape, playing for their, you know, NFL lives. And so that makes it more likely to be competitive, or at least trying to be competitive. My point, I guess, in all of this is saying that, like we've been saying for a couple of weeks, since the Colts game when the Titans lost in overtime 4 weeks ago, the question as to whether or not Mike Vrabel and this Titans coaching staff has lost their locker room has been a moot point to me. And I think each week since then, it has just further solidified the point that this team still absolutely buys Mike Vrabel's message, still absolutely buys into him and what he has to say and what he has to show them during the week, how he coaches them. That Colts game, when they lose in overtime, the Miami unbelievable come from behind victory at the end on Monday Night Football on the road, the close loss in overtime to the Texans last week at home in overtime, and then this week losing close at the very end to the Seahawks. All of these performances are they've been put together by a team that is playing hard. The reason they're losing is not because they're not playing for each other and not playing for their coach. They are. The reason they're losing is because they're not particularly good at football right now. They got a lot of guys on this team that just aren't good enough to cut it, but they sure are trying their butts off out there. And that is a perfect example of a team that, even though they're out of it, even though they have every excuse to not play hard and maybe to give up on their guy or to give a half-assed effort out there, they are playing their butts off for their guy deep into December with 2 meaningless games left. And when you have great examples on national television in recent weeks of teams doing the exact opposite, you know, you watch the Chargers and the Raiders on Thursday Night Football like we did at Boom Buzz Crab Pizza and Tap House. Shout out. You see what that team did with their coach, Brandon Staley, and the ultimate example of giving up on a coach. That's what that looks like, man. What the Titans have been doing for the last month is not what that looks like. And so I think anybody at this point that is still wondering if Mike Vrabel is the guy or not the guy, whether he should be the guy for the future, whether or not he can still relate to these players, or if he's lost his touch, I think that kind of thing has been shut down, JT.
Yeah, no, I think so too. It would be one thing to be losing these games, like you said, by a monstrous score, but this is a team that continues to go out there and give it their best effort, and even then some. However, I do think the cracks are showing right now. I know when you talk to Derrick Henry in his post game press conference, the frustration is starting to even get to some of the guys who you once thought it really wouldn't get to. And I think that's very telling. We saw also during the game, DeAndre Hopkins also not, very pleased with how that game was going.
Well, and in the locker room, I mean, the body language from him in the locker room, I'm glad you brought this up. Very negative, had his head in his hands for a little bit. Like, it was the first time I've seen him truly look like a guy that might be questioning his decision to be here. Or at the very end, I think that's a step too far personally, but that's on the table, right? We don't know. I think it's fair to say he's probably at his wit's end a little bit and frustrated. Naturally, he has every right to be, and impatient, and just he's clearly a guy that's hardwired to win. And so these are guys like he and Henry who, no matter what, no matter the circumstances or the whether your team is in it or out of it. They are winners. They want to win, and they've done a lot of losing, and that's absolutely starting to wear on those guys.
Yeah, and I think it just comes down to, like I said, it's just kind of, and it makes sense because, like, to tie back into my first point, it has just been insanity for this team. And I think my final note is just like the
7 of their 10 losses, by the way, by one score.
Yeah,
so I mean,
that's
the
the cherry on top here is the time of possession in this game. Titans 33-51 to the Seahawks 26-09. And you would say in this one, you also look at the yards. I mean, the yards were very close, but 287 for the Titans.
Titans outgained them.
273 to the Seahawks. Titans with 64 total plays to the Seahawks 59. And you think, man, this team, they must have done something right. Well, then you see how they lost this game. And I think it's very clear to look at third down efficiency, where they were only hitting on 50% today, 6 of 12. Sacks for yards lost, like you said, 6 for 39. And then the big one, penalties, 10 for 97 today. That's how you lose these games. And we could talk again the entire time of just these guys aren't executing. And as Mike Vrabel said after the game, there are no moral victories in this. And I truly believe it's because even if fans want to be like happy about getting a better draft pick, Mike Vrabel and the players in that locker room do not care about their draft pick right now. And I don't think they will care until, at least Mike Vrabel will not care until February comes around, because this is a football team that has a lot of guys who, despite probably not being starting worthy players, are depth guys trying to show something and play for a job, if not just to be depth on a team. And I think that's really important, and they continue to not execute in these games. And so this team is going to still go out there and try every single week. And I think that when you see things like this and not executing, that's the biggest thing.
That's strong, JT. That's strong. It's a good take. Let's end on that. I think that was a great one to end on. I agree. I have no notes. I agree with everything you just said.
I also have the best bet gauntlet notes, if you would like to know.
Oh, sure. Okay, we can end on that.
We can end on that.
We can end on that.
Currently pending these games right now, we are 5-1 on games that have finished. Your current record is 1-1. I am 4-0, pending a Tommy Cutlets 5-0 tomorrow. Maybe I'll get a little Christmas present from that.
I have a feeling you're going to be 4-1, but you know what? I'm not going to wish that upon you. I do. Yeah. Merry Christmas to you if you can do it.
I would really like it. I'm not sure exactly. Actually, Arizona right now losing by 11 with 6 minutes left in the
If
third.
everything holds as currently stands, I'll be 2-2. I need an Arizona comeback. I need Miami to hang on.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And then pending
the big game tomorrow.
Oh yeah, the Ravens against the San Francisco 49ers. So a good week for us again in the best bet gauntlet. We've already got 5 wins, which means best or worst case scenario, we're 500 on the week. Odds are we'll be better than 500 again. Can't stop the train. We'll be betting again on JT. We'll have to at least have you on Thursday.
No,
for the
that's
best
what I was. That's what
maybe
I was
you and I
record
pre-record a segment at least of the best bet gauntlet if you're not going to be there for the rest of the show. We'll figure it out. But the best bet gauntlet will roll on, and this show will roll on again on Thursday. No Tuesday show this week. Enjoy Christmas. Enjoy this evening with your friends and family. Enjoy tomorrow with your friends and family. We're going to be done today. Our shortest episode in a good long while, but you know what? It's because this Titans team.
That's our gift to them.
It's our gift to you all, and this Titans team gifted us by not giving us a whole lot to talk about. So, happy Sunday, happy Christmas Eve to everybody. Merry Christmas, and a happy New Year to all involved. For producer JT, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. This has been the Hot Read Podcast. Again, no Tuesday show. We'll talk to you again on Thursday.